Big Ten Today, presented by Gatorade. It is the Friday walkthrough. Great to have you with us. Dave Revs, Nicole Auerbach, Jerry DiNardo. There is a ton to get to in the next hour. Is everyone focused? Are you ready to go? I mean, you're very, you're getting ready for your bold prediction. You're increasing your Instagram followers left and right. I need your sole focus.
Nobody's supposed to know Nicole is really my fan and bold predictor.
You just said, I didn't say that. I said you were
you
getting
put
ready
the subject
for it.
up, though.
He suggested it.
That is
I am Jerry's IT person.
Yeah.
I'm his bold predictor. I'm doing a lot of things behind the scenes.
All I said was he was getting ready for it. And then you guys
This is how I get ready.
You guys go into full confession mode. What's wrong with you?
We're more honest than you are.
We're a team. We're a team.
Yeah.
We're a team.
Okay. It's bold, by the way, for tomorrow. Yeah, Nicole did a good job.
Let's
dive into our big story. What'd you say?
I might trim it down, like cut it in half.
It's too bold. It's far too bold for you.
God.
Two teams that really need a win going at it tonight, Huskers and Illini. Tomorrow we got fourth-ranked Ohio State against the How in the World Aren't They Ranked Maryland Terrapins, plus three other conference games ending with the Little Brown Jug in prime time. Northwestern and Howard here on the Big Ten Network. That is our sole game. Let's start with the Buckeyes and Terps. We've been saying it all week. This is a potential program-defining game for Maryland. They get Ohio State in a really good spot for the Buckeyes. They're coming off that great win against Notre Dame. They had a week off to prepare for this game. What are you watching in this one?
Yeah, well, I've been excited about this game for a couple weeks now because of all the things we think we're learning about Ohio State. And we're thinking that we're learning about them defensively. They've been really, really good, and I think they were especially impressive against Notre Dame. They've been so good at eliminating explosive plays. That's been such a problem for them the last couple years. But this is an offense in Maryland that can do that. They can have those explosive plays. They've got a quarterback who's really slippery. He extends plays. He's hard to bring down. So I love that that's going to be the challenge to me. It's Maryland's explosive plays versus an Ohio State defense that has been really good at limiting them.
Right, so the Maryland side of it offensively is obviously Leah is their best player, right? And the offensive line was a question going into the season. It looks like they've gotten better, like a lot of parts of the Maryland team. So how can Maryland help the offensive line compete with Ohio State? And it's by play selection and by helping Leah. Now, Leah's only problem is I call it competitive stubbornness. In other words, he won't throw an incompletion. He'd rather scramble around, put himself in danger, which is fine, but he likes to throw across his body, and he can't turn it over. Quick screens, they run the option. I mean, Leah is as good at running the triple option as there is quarterback in the country. So the offensive line's good. It's not athletic not as athletic as the defensive line of Ohio State. Help the offensive line by taking your best player, screens, option, and go.
Well, and I thought it was interesting, Jim Knowles was talking about it this week because of the way that he extends plays, scrambles, can throw it from all different directions and angles, that the important thing is coordinated pressure, right? Because it's not just traditional pressure. Right. It's not just a couple guys, because he's just slippery. He's going to move around. So I think that's going to be really interesting because it offsets some of the, maybe if there's a weakness in the offensive line or just like a more traditional pass protection, because he gets out of the way. He moves around and he keeps the play going.
And we talk about it coming off week, right? A bye week. Coaches go crazy about bye weeks, whether it helps you, hurts you, how to handle it. The one advantage and the one help Ohio State, they can work anti-scramble drills. They can do more contained drills. They're playing a mobile quarterback. So this off week for the Ohio State defense is gold. They try to help. They can get the fastest wide receiver, the fastest player on the team to play quarterback. The scout team quarterback probably has not been simulating Leah. It's probably someone else who can run like the wind, run like Leah, and challenge him constantly.
I'm fascinated to see how Maryland's defense holds up. We've talked a lot about how improved this unit is. I mean, Ohio State has shredded them in this rivalry. Absolutely crushed them, like 57 points a game. Crushed them. It's the most of any team against any other in FBS over the last 10 years. We all believe that Maryland's defense is better, but when you look at the offenses they played, haven't faced anything at the caliber of Ohio State. So can they buck that history? Can this be the year that their defense puts them? They've been in a position to win the game. but it's been because of their offense, not because of anything their defense has done.
Well, and that's going to be a huge question, especially when you look at a team that fell behind early in their non-conference games and had to kind of dig out of that hole. That puts pressure on your defense, puts pressure on your quarterback as well. But I think it's such a great question because that is where you win games in the Big Ten, right? That's what keeps you in games. That's what helps you from getting blown out of the water against teams like Ohio State. So fascinated by that. I know you've been very high on Maryland's defensive growth. I mean, that probably is where the game will be decided. And then you also have a Kyle McCord coming off of the drive of his life and the confidence that you've got to think he takes out of that win against Notre Dame, what that could do for the offense in different facets for Ohio State.
And I do not believe it's a program-defining game. If Maryland,
if they win, it is.
No, it's not. If they win it, if they win it,
no, it is.
If they win it, it's an upset. Okay. Maryland has gotten better every year in the Big Ten. They have a record to prove that. Leah is not going to be there for the rest of his life. He is a maybe once-in-a-lifetime talent that you recruit. When he leaves, you need to start building the entire program over.
It's a program-defining.
It's an upset.
No,
I totally disagree. They've never beaten a ranked Big Ten team.
Okay, I do not believe
Ohio
history of their
State.
time.
It will not. It will not define their program. It'll be an upset. That's all it'll be.
No, it'll define.
I disagree.
It'll define it in a good
We'll
way.
see. Let it play out. Now we have to hope they win and lose. They have to play the game twice. They have to both win and lose.
So that we know what happens?
So we know what happens.
I'm not sure we're going to be able to facilitate that.
See, this is
despite all the power that we have.
On a schedule Friday, we have to play the game twice now.
Yeah.
We're just
Jerry's got
This is
the game
getting very
right
complicated.
Saturday, early in the day on Big Noon. He also has it as a primetime game. We'll split the difference. What about Michigan going to Minnesota? This feels to me like a little bit of a mismatch, Jerry. Even though I understand Minnesota played well last week, and I feel a lot better about the Gophers than I did a week ago. I guess I just look at this game, and with the way Minnesota's defense has struggled, I'm just not convinced that they can slow down Michigan to the extent that they can compete in the game.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to slow down Michigan. I think if Minnesota is going to threaten to win the game, they're going to have to do it offensively. They were 71% run last week. They have finally settled down, and Kaliak-Manis has played his best game. I mean, I've got a clip where he just releases the ball, and I mean, he gets hit. I mean, he was tough. He was the quarterback, I think, that they expected, that he wasn't showing early in the year. And this is an old argument about starting a new quarterback, whether you make him live during camp. If you make them live during camp and you get him hurt, it just kills you. If you don't make him live, you never know how he's going to react to pressure in the game. Honestly, he didn't react to pressure very good until the ULL game. And then he was a superstar, the way he hung in there. So my point is, if Minnesota is going to win, it's not going to be by stopping the Michigan offense. I don't know that maybe they can slow it down. It's going to be their offense is going to have to be really good in the pass game, even though it's only going to be 30% of their offense.
Yeah, and that's a lot of pressure to put on that against a Michigan defense that just doesn't make a lot of mistakes. I mean, that's where, you've got to feel great if you're Michigan. You're coming off the most complete game that you've had, but also the defense has been a rock this entire time. And we talked about this on Monday, but the lack of penalties that this Michigan defense or Michigan team has had, it's just the sign of a really well-coached, well-oiled machine that's just very consistent week to week. And we can nitpick things they do offensively, but that's where it's such an uphill challenge because Minnesota has really gone up and down and all over the place. Michigan, on the other hand, has been very solid and really, really hard to run on, throw on, get off the field on.
I just think it's dangerous, and I'm about to go down a road that I say is dangerous, like the whole transitive property of football is dangerous, right? But you look at how close Minnesota-Nebraska was, and then you look at what Michigan did to Nebraska, and it just feels like this has non-competitive game written all over it. Now, that's not to say that Minnesota can't rise up. It's not to say that JJ couldn't have a game like he did against Bowling Green where he turns it over a bit. I mean, that's the formula for Minnesota here. But it just doesn't feel like, as good as Minnesota has been under P.J. Fleck, and they've been really good, it doesn't feel like this is the best version of them right now.
And if it's another one-sided win for Michigan, which it could be, obviously, I mean, Michigan still hasn't played a tough game, and they really haven't had someone on their schedule that has built them towards their most competitive games. Whereas Penn State, West Virginia, they haven't been killing it non-conference either. Ohio State's the only one of those top three that have been in a real game.
West Virginia, that's their only loss. They're actually better than expected.
I predicted that. I predicted that.
Was that a bold prediction? Did we come up with that one?
No.
I predicted that via Nicole.
No,
but you have been saying, to your credit,
Yeah.
Right.
you have been saying that West Virginia is better.
But
than
that is a
people
fair
give
point.
credit.
I will also say, though, we've been high on Rutgers. I know we're about to talk about them. Rutgers, Nebraska's defense is legitimately better, improved, good. I think we've learned things about Michigan, even with the schedule and all the talk about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, the job they did on Nebraska, like, look, we were sitting here a week ago saying that could be a competitive game, and it was anything but.
No, you're absolutely right. The front of Nebraska is probably the best part of their team, and it didn't look like it against Michigan. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So I mean,
Right.
I think we've learned some stuff. I think some of the conversation around Michigan's schedule is fair, but some of it we have learned a little bit.
I'm glad that we morphed into Schedule Friday. It didn't take us
Had to.
very long. We got a whole Schedule Friday block coming up at the end of the show, Jerry.
Should be a series.
every Friday.
You were alluding to it a moment ago. I want to talk about Rutgers and Wisconsin. We have talked a lot about how much better Rutgers is. And we saw it even in that Michigan game, right? They were certainly more competitive against Michigan than, by comparison, Nebraska was. Now they go to Camp Randall. It's a team they haven't beaten. It's a team they've really never stayed close to. Wisconsin isn't the same, at least early on defensively, that they have been in past years. Can Rutgers control the ball, which I think they need to do to win this game, and at least stay competitive and maybe have a shot there in the fourth quarter?
We have talked about this and underlined it and highlighted it, but the key for Rutgers to win these games is the defense and then the run game.
No doubt.
And I think that is still the key against Wisconsin. And I think they're going to be able to run the ball against Wisconsin. So I think there's definitely some things you can exploit. We like what we're seeing from the Badgers and the growth that they've had offensively. But I think there's been some times in games they have not put teams away when they should have. And I think that there would be that opportunity to control the game, control possessions, control the clock, and then try to step up with your defense against the Badgers' attack.
Yeah, and one thing I would add about the run game, Nicole, is I would say quarterback run game as well. So it's not just the run game. When you look at what Wimsatt can do, I mean, he's become a complete quarterback. He's over 50% now. He's only thrown one pick. I mean, he's really gotten better in the past game. You hate to put your quarterback in a position where it's more than two times a quarterback running the option, two times a quarter rather running the option. In this game, I don't think you worry about how much he runs. If the defense is dictating that they're taking away the dive and the pitch, let Wimsatt run all day long like it was a wishbone team. The Wisconsin defense, Rever, as you mentioned, is not what it's been. And it's a personnel change, right? Because when they took over, Jim Leonard had a bunch of linebackers, few down linemen. So they're playing a 2-down lineman system and a 3-down lineman system. You don't see Wisconsin line up with 4 down linemen, which I think if you went back to the Cincinnati tape and the Ohio State tape before that, where they were coaching defense, it's an entirely different scheme. And some people have heard them.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I think it's going to be Mordecai and Wimsatt, whoever plays the best game out of those two.
Well, and Wisconsin allowed Purdue to run the ball 6.3 yards per carry.
Yeah.
That's a big number. And so, again, that I think is where you're going to see this. Plus, we also need to see Wisconsin respond. We haven't seen them play without Ches Malusi. This is the first full game without him. So what does Braylon Allen's workload look like? What changes there? It's a lot of questions, I think, but I think this could be the most competitive game of the weekend.
It's a really interesting game.
Does it speak to what Greg Schiano has done at Rutgers? I mean, going into Madison, and we're saying, hey.
I'm fascinated by this game. Yeah.
No, absolutely. Done an amazing job.
Yeah.
We have more football.
Terry hasn't slept all week, by the way. She's very
well, she's very fixated on the Badgers. We do have some short pants news, which I know really gets you. That's such a bad dribble. The Big Ten releasing its list of preseason honors today as voted on by members of the media. In the least shocking news of the day, Purdue's Zach Edey has been named the preseason conference player of the year. He swept all 6 National Player of the Year awards last season, averaged better than 22 points, nearly 13 boards for the Big Ten champs. Edey, one of 4 unanimous picks to the preseason all-conference team, joined by Terrence Shannon of Illinois, Jameer Young of Maryland, and Northwestern's Boo Buie. In terms of Michigan State, the 2 schools with multiple selections, with Julian Reese getting the nod for Maryland, and the backcourt combo of A.J. Hogard and Tyson Walker honored for the Spartans. The rest of the list includes Minnesota's Dawson Garcia, Nebraska's Keisei Tominaga, and Cliff Amori of Rutgers. Some sad news in the Big Ten yesterday as Illinois legend Dick Butkus, arguably the greatest linebacker ever to play the game, passed away at the age of 80. Butkus was a two-way player for the Illini, playing both center and linebacker. Led Illinois to a Rose Bowl win over Washington after the 1963 season. Went on to a fabulous pro career with his hometown Chicago Bears as well. Reaction pouring in from across the sports world for Butkus. It is frankly hard to overstate his greatness. He redefined the linebacker position. He was named the 8th best player in college football history when the sport celebrated its 150th anniversary 4 years ago. When we put together our Big Ten Icon show, he was the number 6 athlete in conference history in any sport. Jerry, you knew Dick a little bit, actually quite a bit, I would say, right? You guys crossed paths in the XFL. You were a coach there. He started off as a coach, right, and then moved into the front office. But help people understand Dick Butkus, the man.
Yeah, I had the job with the XFL and I had the Chicago franchise. And having been a fired coach, I hadn't heard from the conference office for a while. So I called up and said, hey, I'm trying to come up and buy a house in Chicago. I haven't heard from you. And Mike Keller, the president, said, there's been a change. Dick Butkus wants to coach, and he's going to coach the Chicago team. You can have Memphis, New York, or Birmingham. So that's how my relationship started with him. So at the first coaches meeting, we were together, and he had obviously never been a head coach, and we started exchanging a lot of ideas. And he went down a road where I don't think this is going to be really good for him. So he became like an ambassador. He became in the administration of the XFL. And so we became great friends, interesting. I've never been with anyone who was so recognizable before. And I've been around a lot of different people because of coaching and everything else. And we had a meeting in LA once, and you couldn't walk 3 steps. Now, there weren't cell phones, so there was no photographs, but there was autographs and all kinds of stuff. We'd go 3 steps before we got stopped. I mean, everyone recognized him out in Los Angeles. And so he'd come to Birmingham to check on our franchise, and we would spend a lot of time. And then we spend a lot of time night before the games when he was covering our game. The TV show that he was in was his biggest joy. I mean, he loved doing that. And everyone knows how much he loved football. I have to say, I think he loved the TV show even more. He would talk about that constantly, but no big time in Dick Butkus. I mean, he was a regular guy, and that's what was always so impressive.
I think that was the thing that stood out to me. You want to say something?
Same. No, I was just going to say all of the remembrances. I did not know him personally, but that's what everyone was saying about him as a person, interacting with him. For such a famous and iconic person and representative of football, it's really cool.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing because I certainly didn't know him to the degree you did, but have sat down with him a couple times. We had him on Big Ten Tailgate a number of years ago, and I've had the chance to interact with him at a couple different functions. And the exterior is so gruff, right? And I mean, he was so ferocious as a player. There's this great quote from Deacon Jones that's been circulating since, over the last day here, where he wasn't a guy who was trying to put you in the hospital. He was a guy who was trying to put you in the cemetery. Right? I mean, he was just ferocious. But then you get to know him, and incredibly philanthropic-minded. He was fabulous with the University of Illinois as an ambassador of the university, but he tried to get steroids out of football, was really concerned with that. I mean, just did so much stuff in the community, and so that dichotomy to me was really fascinating.
Him and his son Matt would get a mobile home, and that's how they would stop at a lot of the XFL stops. So I remember he was coming to Birmingham one day, and him and Matt came to our office, and it was like 2 or 3 other guys with him. And I said, who are these people? He said, we broke down, okay? They didn't know who was in the bus. They stopped, fixed our bus. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been here. So we invited them to come with us. I mean, it was unbelievable.
Awesome. That's great.
That's the kind of guy he was.
Yeah. Great ambassador of the University of Illinois. Illinois Athletic Director Josh Whitman released a statement yesterday calling Butkus, quote, a giant in a land of giants, adding that Butkus changed the school permanently with his, quote, ferocious heart, indomitable spirit, and unshakable loyalty. Butkus died peacefully in his sleep in Malibu, California. On behalf of the Big Ten Network, our condolences to his entire family. His impact on our conference will never be forgotten. Football tonight in Champaign, Illinois and Nebraska. Both these teams coming in at 2-3. Neither has won a conference game, so a big one as they try to keep their heads above water, work toward potential bowl bids. Illinois has actually owned the series in recent years. Brett Bielema has beaten them in each of his first 2 seasons. The Illini have won 3 straight in the series, their longest streak ever against the Huskers. Meeting number 21 tonight, and both these teams really need a win.
Yeah, this is big for bowl eligibility, for accomplishing what you want in the season, but also just righting the ship, right? We've talked a lot about the different things that these teams have really struggled with. It's an opportunity against a matchup opponent, dare I say?
Yeah, no doubt.
I mean,
about as matchups as you can get.
Yeah, this is a winnable game for both sides. Illinois has been turning the ball over, making mistakes, offense and defense. Nebraska, has really started to find something, I think, and then you just play Michigan and you realize, there's a gap there. But I think it's a real opportunity for either side. I actually don't have a real great feel of who I think has the edge.
Yeah, to me, it seems like there's so much more pressure on Illinois. I mean, this is the first time since Brett Bielema has been at Illinois where, you look like it could be sliding, right? I mean, They lost down the road last year, and they could have been in Indianapolis, but they were so far ahead of schedule then you didn't look at it. This is, to me, a little bit different. This is not just a game. I think this is a part of a growing program that had great early success and is trying to keep momentum. You look at the X&O part of it. I mean, you've got Nebraska's the top rushing team in the conference, and Illinois is the worst rushing defense in the conference. And then you go to the other side of the ball, the stats are just as bad. Nebraska's first in rushing, and I already said that, scoring defense, they're on the opposite side. Nebraska can't score, and Illinois can't stop the score. So it's a definite matchup, but man, if I was the Illinois side, I'd feel so much more pressure. Matt Rule's in his first year. We've seen the first years of all the Nebraska coaches, right, after 15 years. So it's nothing new. This is new for Illinois.
Dare I come back to the concept of it's not always linear?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you
guys will learn that when Leah leaves Maryland.
Well, right,
you think it was a program defined. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go back. Go on. I'm sorry, I apologize. Go on.
Getting off
Maryland actually has been pretty linear.
Yes, they have been linear.
Yeah, it's been a linear climb. It might be a little bit of a zigzag here with the Illini. Purdue and Iowa, they're both coming off wins, but I think it's a really different vibe here with the Hawkeyes with Cade McNamara out for the year. They are going to have to redefine themselves, at least somewhat here, or lean into the way that they're currently defined.
If I could indulge on an unbelievable X&O story in this game.
Please do.
All right, so when Purdue beat Illinois, Illinois' defenses were set to stop the pass. Now, in the old days, when you set a defensive game plan, you set it, I stopped the run first and then the pass. In recent years, and you can remember me, you, and Urban were at one of the bowl games, and he said the trend now is to start defending the pass first. Yes. And you remember that conversation?
Yes.
So what Purdue did to Illinois is they took advantage of a pass defense and they ran the ball. And that's why Purdue ran the ball so well. So now Iowa, Phil Parker, has to make a decision after watching the Illinois game, and I'm sure he's made it. But do I stop the run first? Because Purdue can run the ball if they have the matchup numbers in the box, and they can run it really well. So it's going to be a great X&O Purdue offense against Iowa defense.
Yeah, and it just feels like the formula for Iowa is relying on that defense. It is the special teams. It's, we've seen points from both areas. Right. I think relying on that as you continue to break in a new quarterback going to continue to be important. And then the flip side is, like, how much confidence did Purdue gain? How much, as you mentioned, running the ball, but the pass game, everything. I think the offensive explosion, the way they were able to pull away and put that game out was really impressive. So this is a different vibe around Purdue as well.
And play good defense for the first time.
Yeah.
Really this year, too.
Right. Ryan Walters was actually signaling the defense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the the great fun about watching that is a defensive coordinator who's also a head coach. He can pressure anytime he wants, because if they bust the big one, who's he going
to turn to?
The AD's going to come down and say, "Stop blitzing." I mean, if it's an assistant coach.
Do want to spend a moment on our game? Northwestern hosting Howard. The Wildcats could get to 3-3 here, which would not be insignificant. I mean, I think there are a lot of people who thought they might not win more than maybe one game all year. They've never played an HBCU, so I think this is historic in that way. But this is a game Northwestern's got to win.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've circled this one for a while for that reason. And especially, when you are HBCU, FCS opponent, you really do need to take care of business. Howard's quarterback has been really good. He's put up a ton of passing yardage, Quentin Williams. And I think that's probably going to be the main focal area, right? You got to kind of take the game over and not give it too much hope to a quarterback that's been really prolific in his game so far. And a lot of that's going to come to the defense. But we've seen that first half against against Penn State, showed us a lot, I think, about Northwestern on both sides of the balls that you hope would carry over.
Yeah, I would put even more pressure on Northwestern, not only to win this game, which they certainly should, but to win it impressively, to get to 3-3. It seems to me that the coach at Northwestern is judged by how he does in the West, right? I mean, that's how he used to look at Fitz, right? David Braun, coming out of this game 3-3, playing a clean game against Howard, gives that team some confidence where at the way the West is right now, I mean, he could be not fighting for his job, but I mean, you'd have to seriously consider him if he finished the season with a good West record, and this Howard game can help him finish a good West record. Morale, the way you feel, not making mistakes. Big game for them.
Remember, they don't play Michigan. They don't play Ohio State. They already played Penn State.
Right.
To your point, they played them reasonably competitive for a half. So as you look forward here, they do have Maryland on the schedule, but again, I mean, a lot of West games still looming out there for the Wildcats. A huge weekend of Big Ten volleyball kicks off tonight at 6 Eastern on the Big Ten Network with Northwestern taking on Michigan. It's followed by 16th-ranked Minnesota at Maryland. Then tomorrow we have a doubleheader on our air. Number 24, Ohio State playing 14th-ranked Penn State. And then second-ranked Nebraska taking on Michigan. If that is not enough, there are 8 other matches on Big Ten Plus. You can subscribe to that for as low as $9.95 a month at BigTenPlus.com. Later today, do not miss field hockey. Number 2 Northwestern, number 3 Iowa, a marquee matchup. Live coverage begins at 4 Eastern, only on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. Gets us to our big interview. It is Lisa Cellucci, the head coach of the Hawkeyes. She joins us now. And Coach, really appreciate you taking the time on a game day. We had Tracy Fuchs on earlier this week, too, so we've covered this matchup from both sides. National TV, number 2 versus number 3. This league is so good, but what does a matchup like this mean for Big Ten field hockey in general and for your program specifically?
It's a huge matchup for our program and for Big Ten field hockey. I mean, the Big Ten is doing fantastic. The last couple of years, we've been, at the top of our sport. We have so many teams ranked in the top 10, and to have another key matchup between number 2 and number 3 on Grant Field at home for us. We're going to have a great environment with tons of fans out there at Grant Field, and just another chance to play a really quality opponent. Iowa and Northwestern, we've met so many times over in the last really 30 years. The two programs have really battled it out, but most importantly, the last 5 seasons, I think we've met 10 times in some key matchups, and today's going to be another one of those great games.
Should be great, and I want to get into breaking it down in just a bit, but I want to catch people up a little bit on your program this year. You have had some incredible moments. You had a win over number 1 North Carolina. I know this is kind of a young team, certainly young in some key spots, and you didn't have a great sense coming into the year as to exactly what you had. So what have you learned about your team to this point this year?
Yeah, we learned a lot about our team. I mean, you're right. We graduated 8 seniors. We brought in 8 freshmen. So we have a great mix of young and old on the team. And if you would have told me that we'd be ranked number 1 for 4 weeks during this early part of the season last year, I wouldn't have believed you. But this team came in prepared. Our young freshmen they started at a really high level, and we had great team chemistry. And we really, we had some great wins early on at that Big Ten ACC Challenge against North Carolina. Wake Forest, and we kind of kept rolling. And it's been, an unbelievable first couple of weeks for us, and we just are looking forward to continue to keep it going.
Coach, you mentioned being number 1 for essentially a month there. I know you got knocked off that perch this last week. Is there value in that in a weird sort of way? I know you never want to lose, right? Every coach wants to go undefeated, win every game. But particularly when you have a young team and you've had success, maybe that has outstrip the success that you anticipated having, at least that early. Is there value in saying, hey, that we're not perfect at this point, and the loss maybe is something that you can learn from?
Oh, definitely. And, from early on, we really, the ranking was, far removed from our minds. It was a great sign of respect and just an indication of our early season success. But for us from the very beginning with this group was, it's us versus us this entire season, and we have to just be committed to growth and evolving throughout the year. And if we can do that and bring high level intensity, competitive intensity every day, we're going to be where we want to be towards the end of the season. And, losses are going to happen. Our sport, there's so much parity, especially in the Big Ten. And, we talked about it. We're like, okay, it is what it is. Right. We have a chance to learn from it. Let's keep going. And we just have to continue to be better and keep the focus on us.
And you did keep going. You bounced back in a big way against Michigan State. What did that tell you about your team?
Yeah, just that we have resilience, we can learn from our mistakes, and that we can continue to improve each and every day. And, our leadership and our experience on our team has been fantastic. And we have some key players who have really been leading us through this entire season and, showing the young players, what it means to be an Iowa Hawkeye and what it is to play Iowa field hockey and play at our standard. So, I just showed me that, our team's bought in and we're ready to keep going.
Well, I want to talk about one of those young players, and I think the story of the year in field hockey this year, I think certainly from an individual standpoint, has been Dion Van Alsem. She is incredible. She is a freshman. She's leading the nation in scoring from the Netherlands. She's being referred to by some as the Caitlin Clark of field hockey. Help people understand the impact that she has made on your team and on this sport.
Yeah, unbelievable. She already has 23 goals on the season. We haven't had a goal scorer who scored over 18 goals in quite a long time. So to have 50 points on the season and 23 goals at this point, just 11 games in, is unreal. She came in. We knew we were recruiting a great player. When she committed to Iowa, we were very excited. Weren't quite sure exactly where she was going to play, and to be honest, didn't know she was going to be able to score at this clip. But has a great hockey IQ, and really the difference for us is we've always been a program that has relied on our defense and has had strong history in that regard. And, to be able to have a goal scorer really help, continue to put us on the map and keep us in every game, because, we're in every game with our strong goalkeeping, our defense, but you have to be able to score points to win. And Dion has been fantastic. And, her teammates have also really set her up, and she'd be the first one to tell you that. But to continue to score at this clip, there's only been one game she hasn't scored in. And yes, there's been a lot of references to the Caitlin Clark of field hockey. I'm not sure we're quite yet ready to go there, but if you score 4 goals in a game, it is like scoring 40 points in a basketball game, and she's done that. So
right.
We're just looking forward to her to continue to get better and keep going and help the Hawks.
I wanted to ask you about that because I do think the truth of the matter is, not everyone who's watching really knows field hockey inside and out. So when we have you on, I think part of what I want to do is to educate people. So help us understand. Maybe you just gave us that perspective. Is averaging a goal a game, is that the equivalent to being a 10-point-a-game scorer? So if she's 2 goals a game, is that 20 points a game in basketball, or is it more? Is it 30?
I think it's actually a little bit more. In field hockey, the really close games are very low scoring, right? And so to be able to have a quality number of shots, she was averaging just close to 3 goals a game. That is like 35 points in a basketball game, which is not easy to do. So, and she's being double and triple teamed. It's quite a feat. So, the amount of shots she's getting on goal, the amount of assists that she's also providing, it's a really well-rounded game and quite offensive, a lot of offensive production.
Can you give me the backstory on her? How did she make her way to Iowa?
Yeah, so our associate head coach, Michael Bohl, he's from England, and he has some great recruiting contacts overseas. And he had heard about Dion, and we got a chance to see her play. And then, we were able to bring her on an official visit. And when she got to Iowa City, she really fell in love with the town, the community, the people, I think the history of our program. And yeah, we were so excited to get her because, there were a lot of programs that were recruiting her. And she said, Iowa City felt like home to her and family. And I'll tell you, she's, people are recognizing who she is in and around town, and they're calling her Dion Van Awesome instead of Van Awesome. So it's been a lot of fun, and she has just a quiet confidence about her. So it's really neat to just see her take this all in, but just kind of stay focused on the everyday and keep going.
Coach, the last time we had you on, we talked quite a bit about your nephew Peter. He was battling brain cancer. Your team had really taken him under its wing. I just wanted to get an update. Bring us up to date on how Peter's doing in his battle.
I so appreciate that. He's doing great. He just started 4th grade. He finished his treatment about almost a year ago right now. So now the situation is he gets scans every 4 to 5 months to check to see if there's any disease. And so far, so good. There hasn't been. And that'll happen for 5 years. And if we can hit that mark, then hopefully the word remission is used. But he's doing great. Obviously going through the treatment that he had, over 15 months of chemotherapy and radiation. He was unbelievably resilient. And I couldn't thank the Hawkeye community, our team, and people from all over the country who just have supported him and the family and the prayers. It's been wonderful. But he's enjoying 4th grade and doing all the normal things that a 4th grade boy is doing. So, and he loves the Hawks. He's still watching us all the time. So really appreciate you asking about Peter, but he's doing great.
Of course. Yeah. We've obviously thought about him quite a bit since we talked about him a couple of years ago. So really wonderful to hear that news. I do want to finish up with today's game. Give us the scouting report here. This is such a great rivalry, as you said, between Iowa and Northwestern. The anticipation's been building on this one all week. What do you need to do to get a win against the Wildcats?
First and foremost, we need to do the work to keep our structure defensively. Northwestern has an unbelievable transition game. They can just draw penalty corners, score goals, and they catch people in transition with their speed and their skill. So our ability to really set up our counter defense is going to be very important. And then on the attacking side of the ball, we have to commit to moving the ball and just do the willingness to do the work on the offensive side of the ball, so we can catch them in transition too. Because we have quite a transition game ourselves, so we have to put them under pressure.
This should be a fabulous game again later today, 4 o'clock Eastern time on the Big Ten Network. Lisa Cellucci, really a pleasure to catch up with you. Best of luck, not just today, but going forward. And thanks a lot for your time.
Thanks so much, Dave. Really appreciate it. Go Hawks.
The Big Ten announced the conference football matchups for the next 5 years yesterday. Thumbnail summary, 12 protected rivalries. Those will be played annually. Aside from those, each team will play the other teams in the conference at least twice, once home and once away in a 5-year span. No team will play any other team more than 3 times every 5 years. The conference never wavered from the 9-conference game format. Competitive balance a goal. Idea for the schedules to be as equitable as possible, and also to position the conference well for maximizing entry into the CFP. Travel's a major focus. No team will head west more than once in a season. As for the West Coast teams, the years they have 5 road games, one of those will be their rivalry game. So in other words, in years UCLA has 5 conference road games, one will be USC and vice versa, same with Oregon and Washington. There was a lot to digest yesterday. Your biggest takeaways?
My biggest takeaways was looking at it in a grid on a piece of paper, and it is such a loaded schedule. It looks like an NFL schedule. It really does. It's so impressive. And what I love about that for the top teams, you're making sure that USC is going to play Michigan or Ohio State every year. You're going to have a lot of those matchups that everyone's going to salivate over. And what that means is you're going to have multiple CFP contenders every single year, because they're going to have these loaded resumes, a lot of opportunities for signature wins or to make up for a loss. I love that, and how the top of the league is going to look.
Some of the things that have changed, I think the West teams, which is a balanced division, right? Everyone had a chance to go to Indianapolis and win a Big Ten championship. This makes it a lot tougher for the West team. So I think we've minimized some chance of the West teams winning the conference, even though they never won the East-West game in Indianapolis. It still had a chance.
There.
I think the teams that have struggled in the East, meaning that they didn't have the tradition of Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State, I think it helps them. So I think there's some help. I think it goes both ways. But at the end of the day, there's the NFL-like schedule that you mentioned, Nicole, that includes the 12-team playoff. So it can be a really difficult schedule, and I can still play for the national championship. That makes it NFL.
That's the important part. 12-team playoff. There's going to be more spots, more at-large access.
Let's hope the committee actually rewards strength of schedule.
Please.
They've talked about it.
They'll definitely get the top 4 into 12.
You're the worst. See you tomorrow.